Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
October 13, 2020, the Digital Gap Edition. First up from the Wall Street Journal, the Chinese company GSX Tekadu has been attacked by short sellers. It has had an SEC investigation sparked by the short sellers claiming that it is it's fraudulent in its accounting practices, specifically revenue and accounting. And GSX, however, has weathered the storm, and they currently have a internal investigation going. It's not clear who is doing the investigation, but they are proceeding with to cooperate with the SEC. So it's going to be interesting to see if the company survives this, and like any other Chinese company that falls under scrutiny, whether it's just one big accounting fraud. Next up, from New York Times Deal Book, there are new questions about Leon Black's ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Shortly after he was arrested last year, Leon Black, Apollo's billionaire CEO, was asked about his decades-long ties with the financier, but turns out that the two had a very deep relationship, and that as recently as 2017, they were still doing business together. Black was wiring millions of dollars to Epstein or Epstein-controlled companies. So Leon Black apparently is going to have a lot to answer for this, and it could be, looks like Black may have paid Epstein as much as $75 million, which would help explain how Epstein amassed an estate worth nearly $600 million. Next up from the Houston Chronicle, the energy industry has once again shot itself in the foot with its lack of moving forward into the digital age, and it must address digital skills gaps. The energy industry has an older workforce, but they can't attract millennials or rather Gen Zs because no one wants to work for a corrupt industry. And that's really led to a lack of digital skills at the top end. And the energy industry needs to understand that if they're going to survive moving forward, they're going to have to attract Gen Zers, but they're going to have to change their corporate philosophies away from destruction to creation and, more importantly, climate-friendly policy. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can overcome their lack of digital skills because of an older workforce that can't or won't be trained, and certainly the energy industry's lack of doing so. And finally, an article from the BBC about 2 powerful images on South African corruption. The first was a bright red Ferrari, which was confiscated by officials from South Africa's asset forfeiture unit, along with a Bentley convertible, 2 staggeringly opulent villas and other items worth about $18 million from the estate of the former president. So once again, South Africa corruption is in the news, and hopefully it will move forward positively. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.